It's time for the first and soon-to-be favorite matchup, and this one should be quite interesting. I have been imagining this battle for quite a while now, and I am eager to see how this will unfold. So, I hope you enjoy what we have in store for you, with today's pick of legendary magic wielders, as the battle for supremacy in this episode that I call the Elders' Reckoning. Battle of the Arcane. For those of you that are new here, let me explain the concept behind these videos. The idea is simple. Two or more fictional characters are put up against one another, and the results are decided by our fans. In the end, only one character can be victorious. Let us see what happens when the most powerful wizard from medieval England goes up against one of the most powerful wizards from Middle-earth. Let the scenario unfold. Behold, Merlin versus Gandalf. Our story begins in a clearing deep within Hogwarts' forbidden forest. Headmaster Albus Dumbledore is taking a stroll through the trees when he senses a magical disturbance coming from the center of the forest. Quickly, he casts a spell to notify Rubeus Hagrid and Minerva McGonagall that he won't be joining them for tea that evening. Dumbledore has felt such magic before, just once before, over 40 years prior. That magic belonged to the dark wizard Grindelwald, a man whose power was only matched by his own hubris. After due consideration, Dumbledore had tracked down his former friend and confidant and fought him in an epic duel inside the French Ministry of Magic. The fight was long and difficult, but in the end, Dumbledore emerged victorious, and Gellert Grindelwald was imprisoned in a prison from which he would never escape. But this magic is different, stronger even, as Dumbledore approaches the source of the disturbance. He finds a man unlike any he's ever seen before. The stranger is cloaked in flowing robes that seem to shimmer with all the colors of the universe. His eyes twinkle with mirth and wisdom, and his beard flows down his chest like a waterfall. Though he seems quite old, there is a youthful vigor about him that belies any number of years. Within Dumbledore's hand, his elder wand seems to sag in comparison, and the man introduces himself simply as Gandalf. The White Wizard then proceeds to tell Dumbledore that he and his order have been called to help in a war against Sauron, the Dark Lord. But Dumbledore refuses to become involved in otherworld's conflicts, no matter how dire. To make matters worse, Gandalf reveals that they haven't come alone. There is another wizard waiting to join the fray. A wizard who has perhaps the greatest claim to the title of the greatest wizard of all time, Merlin. And before Dumbledore can mount any sort of defense, Merlin has already begun. With a flick of his wrist and a muttered word, the ground beneath Dumbledore explodes into a mass of thorny vines. The trees around them reach out with grasping branches. With great excitement, Dumbledore raises his wand and cries Lumus Maxima, causing his wand to blaze with light and burn away the creeping darkness. As Merlin continues his assault, Dumbledore realizes he must take action quickly, or he will be overwhelmed. So he lets loose with a stupefy spell. To his surprise, however, the spell only knocks Merlin's hood off his head and startles his owl, who then flies away. Undeterred, Dumbledore follows up with Wingardium Leviosa. sending Merlin's hood floating back to his head. How kind. And they both stood, each with a smirk, impressed by one another's power. Now the preliminaries over. Dumbledore asks Gandalf why he wishes to bring a third party into this conflict between him and Saruman. Gandalf replies that Dumbledore is the only wizard powerful enough to stand toe-to-toe with Saruman, and that's why he's brought Merlin here. Now, says Merlin, the fate of Middle-earth hangs in the balance, and I hope you, Dumbledore, will reconsider. Bah, the headmaster is adamant. It would take a Herculean effort to open a portal to another world, and he doesn't feel inclined to try. So, he readies for another attack. However, before he can utter another spell, Gandalf steps forward and raises his staff. He explains that there is no need for portals, because he's already brought a piece of Middle-earth to this world. And with that said, he waves his staff and the forest around them begins to tremble. Mountains rise from the forest floor and oceans boil in the sky above. The three wizards stand at the center of this miniature Middle-earth. As Gandalf bellows, "You had better reconsider, Headmaster." Alas, the Headmaster knows that there is no reasoning with stubborn wizards. Dumbledore takes his stand and prepares to defend himself. At first, the battle seems to go evenly. Dumbledore uses spells such as Accio to pull Merlin's weapons away from him, and Wingardium Leviosa to keep him aloft. Meanwhile, Merlin counters with spells of his own. One spell causes the very air itself to turn to fire, so Dumbledore is forced to shield himself with a complex Protego charm. Another spell makes a thick fog appear, blocking Dumbledore's sight. Then another spell weaves enchantments upon the forest, turning the trees and rocks into trolls and goblins that attack Dumbledore from every side. However, Dumbledore is no slouch, and for every spell Merlin casts, he has a counter. He freezes the fire with an ice freezing charm. He navigates the fog with ease, and with a flick of his wand, he rebukes the enchanted creatures back to the stone form from which they once were. Just as Dumbledore thinks he might prevail, Merlin utters a spell that gives him wings made of pure light. He quickly ascends into the air and begins to rain down fire from above. This is too much for Dumbledore to handle, and he is forced to call on every ounce of magical ability to hold his ground. Using the last of his strength, he raises his wand and calls upon the Phoenix, the legendary bird that lives for 900 years before bursting into flames to be reborn again. The Phoenix flies towards the oncoming fireballs and dives through them, extinguishing them as it goes. Then it lands on Dumbledore's shoulder, giving him the strength to continue fighting. Meanwhile, Gandalf sees that Merlin is struggling and feels compelled to step into the fray. However, he knows that if he does so, he could very well tip the scales. And that's not something he wants to do. So, instead, he watches patiently until Dumbledore grows weaker and Merlin gains the upper hand. Just as Merlin thinks he has Dumbledore beaten, Gandalf intervenes. He then strikes Merlin with his staff, knocking him off his feet, hoping to gain favor with Dumbledore, but not fully realizing the consequences. This gives Dumbledore the chance to recover and work together with Gandalf to subdue Merlin. But even after they bind him, Merlin won't subdue. And Merlin said, Saruman will soon arrive to collect his prize, and if you destroy me, it will be known you've interfered. And thus a great war will commence between 3 different worlds. Hearing this, Gandalf realizes that the only option left is to allow Merlin to deliver them to the evil ringmaster. So he casts a spell to erase their memories of the battle. And the 2 wizards awaken in Saruman's tower, not knowing how they got there. And that's where we'll leave off this episode. I know Merlin is not evil. It was only for the purpose of the story. Who do you think would win in a battle between Merlin, Dumbledore, and Gandalf? All 3 are extremely powerful wizards, but their styles of casting spells are vastly different. Merlin tends to rely on quick incantations and elaborate hand movements, while Gandalf prefers a more stoic approach, preferring to build up power slowly before unleashing it in a single devastating blast. And Dumbledore is wise and learnt of his craft, with many spells, enchantments, and incantations to pull from. Gandalf is definitely more flamboyant and theatrical, while Merlin is more reserved and calculating, and Dumbledore more refined, calculated, and elegant. Ultimately, though, it's hard to say who would win. What's certain is that it would be an epic battle for the ages. Now it's time to decide the outcome of this battle. Remember that only one wizard can be victorious in this battle. So cast your vote carefully. Does the power of the Elder Wand and the knowledge of hundreds of spells give Dumbledore the advantage he needs to defeat his opponents? Or is Merlin's raw natural talent and experience with the most powerful magic of all time, the ultimate magic, the one that connects us all, the secret to victory? Or is it Gandalf, who passed through death, can harness light, who is versed in many tongues, that would overcome in this battle of the ages? Only you can decide who emerges victorious in this battle. Will it be Merlin, Dumbledore, or Gandalf? Vote now in the comment section below. And don't bloody well fight down there. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.